it's working. Hi, I'm Denise Harvey, and I'm running as an incumbent to be reelected to Tribal Council. I want to first of all thank all of you for coming, and especially thank all the candidates that are here. As a Tribal Council person, you take every opportunity you have to communicate with your membership and to answer their questions. And this is one great opportunity where we can do that, and it gets videoed and people on social media and on the internet can see it. So I really want to put a hands out to the candidates that showed up today so that they recognize, and obviously they believe that it is important to be here and to answer questions for our members. So thank you, and have fun asking all the questions.
So I'm Monty Herron, roll number 2165. For those of you who don't know me, I'm the great-great-grandson of Tilmer and David Leno, and great-grandson of Lizzie Lafferty and Paul Buffalo Lafferty, and then Margaret Maccabee was my grandmother, my maternal grandmother. She managed the Bonanza for most of the time that was open out there in Grand Ronde. So I am just finishing up 6 years in college thanks to the tribe, and have 3 degrees now, and recently took on an adjunct professor position, but this is the most important thing to me right now. So I'm happy to see everybody here, and hope we have a great time.
Michael Langley. My grandparents are Roy and Delia Langley. My great-grandma was Alice Cornell. That's the lines I come from. My mom is and dad are Leonard and Rose Langley. 7 years ago, I started work at the casino as corporate audit services. That allowed me complete access to the whole casino. It's right in our charter. And I've utilized that. I've learned a lot about the casino industry in general, but specifically our own casino. My education is in accounting, and I just felt for a number of years that eventually at some point I was going to run for council. I think the skills I have will serve our tribe well. I thought it might be when I was 55, is what I always considered. I'm 49 years old, and I just think the time is right with the challenges that we have for my skills to help and contribute. And I'm going to keep it even briefer than Denise. I'm really happy to see the turnout, happy to see some family from Warm Springs, and I hope you enjoy what we're doing here.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Kathleen George. I'm the daughter of Barbara McKnight Fian and Jim Fian, and the granddaughter of Elvira Sissy, Langley McKnight, and Tom McKnight. It's a great pleasure to be with you here today. I think anybody who is asking for our membership support needs to demonstrate that we want to be communicating with the membership. We need to be listening to the community about what they think is most important, and that needs to start now and continue throughout anybody's term. So I think these forums are very important. I'm really glad to see you here. I've spent my 20-year career helping tribes accomplish their goal. Most of that was doing natural resources policy work for tribes. So helping tribes accomplish their goals to protect salmon and recover them, to protect water quality and to protect the health of tribal people. And then for the last 5 years, I've been managing Spirit Mountain Community Fund, our tribe's charitable arm. And through doing that, I've been able to do a lot of work in the education arena and with some of the charitable organizations that are doing some of the best work in the state. And so I'm very pleased to be here and can't wait to hear about the conversations we're going to have today. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Jackie Minnie Hides. I'm the daughter of Margaret Provost and Nor Kimsey, the late Nor Kimsey. I've worked for the tribe for 10 plus years. And before that, I worked at Chemawa for almost 10 years. And my education is in the medical field. I feel that our most important asset in the tribe is our tribal members and their families. And I look forward to working with the other council members, these and the current ones. And I hope you have a good day today and has some good questions for us. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Yeah, well, it's interesting that Brian talked about that the first ones to get services cut is especially the Portland market, because we actually have more tribal members that live in Portland than we do in Grand Ronde or anywhere else in the state. So that has been a concern of mine. I have worked in out of the Portland office in the past, and I really do support the programs that they've had there, and I wish they would continue, because I think there's a lot of engagement from our memberships in Portland. I can't say that I feel like and for whatever reason, and I don't know why it is, but I wish more people would feel welcome and invited and want to participate. And I'm hoping that someday that we can get to that level. I mean, I have been to some of the craft classes, and there's a pretty good turnout there, but I don't know if it's why that is. Not all of our programs, there's other things that we have too, that not everybody always feels welcome in participating, and I want to change that environment so that our members do feel welcome. If we can't provide the services, then I think we need to have the resources that are available in those outside areas for our tribal members. And there are a lot of other resources available. It's just that we don't always connect our people to those resources or help them access them. And I think that we could definitely improve in that, even in the Grand Ronde community. There's a lot of other resources out there that we do not help our members access those services. It seems like they, come to the tribe and they want a service and we don't provide it, and we just tell them, no, we don't provide that for you. But we never say, but here's a place where we can, and let us help you with that. And, from preschool to medical help to whatever kind of services there are. So I'm definitely supportive of supporting our programs in our Portland area, and I hope that they will grow and that we will have more participation.
Thank you, Denise. You want to go next, Monty?
Yeah. I already said that.
Oh, sorry.
I'm going to start at a higher top level then. So I know that we provide education services outside the 6 county service area, which has been important for my family. I have a brother that lives in Kansas, so it was important for him to still be able to access educational funding. But when it comes to things like the home repair grants, the down payment assistance, things like that, I like the idea of things staying in the 6 county service area, because I think the idea there is to bring people home. If you want to access something like that, like buying a home, then have it be in the 6 county service area where you can be closer to the tribe. So I don't disagree with those things, but I definitely agree with things like the satellite offices getting short shrift. That doesn't work for me. We've had this Portland satellite office for so long, and it's so underutilized. The only thing we have there is the culture classes and language classes, and I'm super grateful for the language classes. I see Eric or Alec Benando sitting out in the audience there, and I satisfied my foreign language requirement for higher education learning Chinook. So I was really grateful for that opportunity. But I think that we could do more. And especially knowing that we have more tribal more tribal members living in the Portland area than in Grand Ronde, then we should be providing more services in Portland. So that's the long and short of that.
Go ahead and pass it down. Let's go, Michael.
I actually have used the Portland satellite office. I was living in Rainier, and it was the closest. And actually, I think we did a drum making class, and I believe Adrian was there, and I think her mother was there as well. We actually had a little medical scare, but it was also your sister. That's who it was. Yeah. So it's a while back, but that was the way my boys got to make drums, and to go even farther to Grand Ronde would make it very difficult. So yeah, I'm in full support of Portland offices. I mean, I think we could do more partnership too with this agency right here and other tribal agencies. We could join some services and expand programs for both if we're able to do that. I know the Eugene office has had some budget issues. I mean, I don't really know the numbers for Eugene. It seems like it's in demand. Definitely would like to expand as much as we can, whatever outreach you can. What I'm happy to see is with the language program, with the app that's come out. And I think we could use more things like that, electronic formats to reach people even outside our Portland and Eugene areas. And I'm all for funding for that. Anything that we can do that will help us finally fulfill that promise of making it our own, I'm all for that.
I have a few thoughts on this topic. One is, I think, kind of like largely what we've been discussing here, focus on areas where we know we have a high concentration of tribal members. So Portland and the Salem area, and then the Eugene area might be obvious instances of that. And then where can we create a sense of community where people really feel that that is their tribal office and that they really have access to their tribal government by going there and participating in events. We've had a lot of mention, and I think the language and culture classes are dearly loved in the Portland office. Greg always has lots of folks coming to that. But an idea that I've discussed with some folks is, how can we help people feel like they're part of our tribe? And for example, why couldn't we use our office in the Portland area, which has a very large screen TV, to host long distance participation in general council meetings? Those are all taped and they're all shared and available online, but it's very easy actually to hook up two-way interfaces so that somebody from a meeting in Portland could ask a question of our council. I've actually participated in graduate level courses this way. It's done all the time. Our tribe has the technology already, but then that also gives our tribal membership a chance to get together for those meetings every month. And it's that sense of community and togetherness that also makes us a tribe, not just sitting in our house and downloading a meeting. So I would think it would be interesting to find out, how many of our tribal members in the Portland area or the Salem area or the Eugene area would be interested in getting together for general council meetings and having a live feed. Additionally, what about Wednesday night meetings? That's the second question I'd like to ask. We know that those are very frequently watched. I get feedback all the time from folks about this question that was asked or that question. So we know people want to know what's going on. And I think it would be even more powerful if we gave them an opportunity to come together and talk about what they're hearing. Because then you don't feel like you're in isolation. The other thing, I do think we have some wonderful programs that are available long distance. One of the things I'd like to see, in addition to the existing educational services we have right now, we provide tutoring to children who need that support in the Sheridan and Willamina school districts. Now I know we can't be sending Grand Ronde tutors all over the state or the country, but I would love to see that critical support of tutoring for kids who need extra help provided where they need it. So our education staff could work with professional tutors in Hawaii or Alaska or Minnesota and say, how is it that we could get professional services if your child isn't meeting standards in math or reading, the critical issues that are going to really determine whether or not they have a successful educational experience. I would love to see that support provided long distance, like we do with health and like we do with scholarships. And then the last thing I would say is sometimes we can't be everywhere. Sometimes the Grand Ronde tribe will not be able to be the actor everywhere that our tribal members need support. That being said, sometimes the Grand Ronde tribe can act as a very powerful policy advocate for our memberships in getting government and agencies to do their job responsibly for tribal members. And one of the things I'm thinking about is the Oregon Department of Education and the study that was done that demonstrated Oregon tribal members are not doing well in the Oregon educational system. Well, it's not actually Grand Ronde's job to run the Oregon education system, but we should be saying to the Oregon Department of Education, if you are not adequately educating tribal children, that needs to change, and we can bring pressure to bear to change that, like the Tribal Attendance Project that just got initiated last year. So those are some of the thoughts I have. Thank you.
My thought on the services for the satellite office is, that we all need to work together, and before we were restored, my mother and I and a few other people had a lot of connections with the Indian Health Board and different people up here, and we actually went around and took a census, and of course it came out with the most Native Americans, not only Grand Ronde but other tribes also. And I just want to say, I don't want to be redundant with what Kathleen just said, but I agree with her. We need to put some pressure on the education department to bring these kids up to grade level and not just let them fall through the cracks. And I realize too that tutoring is available in some places, not all. So that would be something to look at. And I'm in full support of the satellite offices. I think they've done a wonderful job with the classes they offer. I've taught cradle board classes and moccasin classes, regalia classes, and I've always had a full class and people waiting. So, you know, there is a need for more, and people want more all the time. And that's our job as elders, to share our knowledge and our wisdom. So, thank you.
I think I mentioned at the last meeting that we used to have Spirit Mountain Gaming Incorporated, which was a consulting group that allowed us to go consult with other tribes that were just starting their casinos. And I don't know when we tapered off doing that, but it's something that I think we really should think about reinvesting in. And that's investing in helping other natives, giving other natives a hand up. We make money. We still make money doing that. So that's Indians helping Indians. And I think that's a really good thing to think about getting more involved in. Otherwise, we need to look at other economic venues. I mean, we had to get rid of somebody that was giving us bad advice on making investments. So now we need to really think through what we do next. But I think adding value-added services to our hotels, or to our hotel, would be one great way to start. And last meeting I mentioned, winery tours, possibly getting into the Evergreen Water Park, taking that over. Instead of providing a pool in Grand Ronde, we can buy one that's already built and have a revenue stream coming in from that. It also adds an amenity to our hotel that we can shuttle people to do those things. So, and winery tours are really popular too. So these are all things that we could do as added amenities, and they bring value to the lodge while giving us new revenue streams at the same time. I'd love to see us partner with local businesses too, to do maybe joint ventures that we know are tried and true.
Great. Who would like to go next? Anybody?
I think Denise does.
Denise? Okay.
Well, I mean, we had that question last week, and I think a lot of people had a lot of great ideas. I think one of the things, what I've been trying to do, and I still believe that we need to do it, is create an economic board of different levels of business professionals that sit on that board, have business knowledge, and can give us the advice and guidance that we need to make the big decisions. None of us on the tribal council would consider business experts, and I really appreciate the input from 6 people at different levels of knowledge versus one individual coming in and telling us their perspective on it, and their educated and experience is in one area of business. There's multi-levels of business, and I think we need people from all those different levels to give us the advice and guidance that we need to make the decisions. There have been opportunities in the last couple years that we could have looked into. The hemp industry, the marijuana industry, the medical marijuana. I did attend a lot of those conferences just to know that this was something that was going to be new. This was new to our country, that this was becoming legal. Oregon was one of the first states to become legal in it. Oregon had probably the most lenient laws than any other state. And it's actually, the hemp product is, I think we're only one of 5 states that has that actually in our farm bill. Nobody wants to talk about it. Nobody wants to talk about it. And it is something that needs to be talked about. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry. Other states, California's probably become legal this year. Nevada's probably on the, and there are some pretty heavily populated areas. I know it's a sensitive subject. I've actually talked about maybe putting it out on an advisory vote to where you not ask just marijuana, because it's not just marijuana. You know, there's a recreational aspect of it, there's the medical marijuana aspect of it, and there's the hemp industrial aspect of it. And I think those are three completely different arenas, and they need to be asked individually and what our membership thinks about that. And I feel like we're, you know, what do they say, a day short or a dollar short and a day late. I wish we would have kind of been on this page a little bit sooner, but you know, if we can get there and at least have the conversations and really put some thought into it, then I think it's something that we should do. It's not something that we should ignore because of people's concerns, or let's really look into it and let's listen and let's pay attention. And there's a lot of people making a lot of money on it. So
Thanks, Denise. Who'd like to go next? Kathleen.
Yeah, I'll just share some of the thoughts that we shared when we had this conversation last time. I think this is a really, really critical issue for us, so it definitely is worth our spending some time on. I asked at this Wednesday's council meeting if there were any plans to rebuild our economic development department, and in the end I was told not really. I was told that those roles had been assigned to the executive team. And so I'm not sure exactly who that is, but I believe it's our general manager, Dave Fullerton, and Stacia Martin, and I'm not sure who else. Those folks are very bright people, but they have very important full-time jobs that should be taking up all of their time and effort. I mean, to be general manager or chief of staff for our tribal government is an enormous job. Stacia is an incredibly talented young woman, but she has a job to do, and I believe we need to let her do it. I really appreciate what Denise just said, the confidence and humility to say, I am not an expert in economic development, which is true. And I think our leadership needs to have both the confidence and the humility to admit we can't be experts in everything. And therefore, we need to go out and find the best minds and experts in Oregon and bring them to our table to help us redevelop an Oregon-based economic development department. And we need to not ask folks who have full-time jobs and overfull plates and don't have a background in economic development to try to do that. I think that takes us down the path, you know, that we were on in 2015 and had to disastrous results. I think we need to learn from our mistakes. All people make mistakes. What's important is what you learn from it and what you do afterwards. And that's where I think we're struggling. We need to learn from what went wrong in 2015 and was a disastrous economic loss, hire the best minds in the state to explore areas where we have strategic advantages. A couple I mentioned, and there are some others. I think there's advantages with our taro ordinance, both for our tribe and other tribes who have adopted this, and they give strategic business priority to Indian-owned businesses. We must buy, I don't know, Michael probably does, how many napkins and paper plates and forks. We all buy those from somebody, and so does Tulalip, and so does Wild Horse and Umatilla, and they all have taro ordinances, and they will preferentially buy from an Indian-owned business. I think that's something that we should explore. Also, the Oregon Department of Transportation also will give preference to Indian-owned businesses for a wide variety of contracted services. All those cones you see, anywhere they're doing work, flaggers, earth movers, those can all get preferential business treatment for Indian-owned businesses. That's the kind of place where I think we have strategic advantages, and we should explore those. And then the last thing I wanted to share is that we should be looking around at local partners. Monty, I appreciate you bringing up Evergreen. Evergreen, however, just sold to a new buyer, and so that opportunity is no longer on the table. But the Willamette Valley is becoming a huge tourist hub for Oregon. I do think, as the second or third largest tourist destination in the state, we should be looking for opportunities to partner in the Willamette Valley.
Thank you. Jackie or Michael, you guys want to say it? Jackie, go ahead.
I agree with what Denise was saying and also Kathy. Again, I don't want to be redundant, but the partnership between the tribe and Portland and Eugene, that's kind of hand in hand with our satellite offices. And if we had a way to communicate with our tribal members, because I think our tribal member voices matter. You know, people have an opinion, you know, and we're not always right. And neither is membership, you know. But we learn from it, and we have had some hard lessons this past year financially. And I do agree with going with the economic development department being revamped or put a good infrastructure there. And like Kathleen said, let the employees do their job, because you know, when you have too much, something slips, something doesn't get done, or it's on the back burner again, you know, and it takes a while for what's been done in the meetings to be generated, excuse me, to the departments and membership. So, you know, we need that communication. We all need to work together as a team, even if we don't agree. You know, that it's okay not to. You know, that if it's put together well, I think with our council candidates that we do have a good selection, and everybody has something to bring to the table. You know, I think everyone here's got good qualifications, good thoughts, and hopefully clear minds. And talking about the sensitive area she was talking about, Denise was talking about, the hemp, that was brought up probably, what, 2 years ago or 3 years ago. Hemp products, I use hemp shampoo, yeah. But, you know, whether or not, you know, you smoke medical marijuana or recreational, it doesn't matter. Each person has their own business, you know, and I think that we're missing out on some good cash, and it would be a good opportunity for the tribe to make some money. If our tribal members use it or not, I'm pretty neutral about it. But I know Warm Springs is doing well with their investments in California, and now the federal government wants a piece of the pie too. So we need to, you know, kind of catch up, and that's all. Thank you.
Thanks, Jay. Michael.
Yeah, you know, of course I work at the casino, but it isn't just because I work at the casino that I believe this. I think we need to do some investment on other businesses that help support the casino. Something that's going to pull people off the highway. Maybe they're not gamblers, but pull them off the highway. They can come and do some entertainment. Like I say all the time, I'm really big on the really upscale bowling alleys. The one in Greenwich Village that started this whole bowling alley craze, this upscale, 60% of their business is convention business. We have a convention center that we have a hard time filling. So bowling like that could help the convention business, help drive the gaming itself, and then also be an alternative for people that really don't game, but they don't mind spending some money on food, drink, and other forms of entertainment. Those are the things I'd like to focus on, because we do face some more challenges with the Cowlitz tribe, and I think anything that helps support our casino would be very beneficial. We have a limited pie to cut up for these economic investments, so to me that would be my first focus, is what can we do to help the casino. Now outside of things, I agree with what Kathleen and Denise said, and Jackie was talking about hemp. You know, hemp can make biodegradable plastics. And, you know, talk about thinking of our 7 generations forward. That's a perfect opportunity, because we go through so much plastics at the casino in and of itself, and all these casinos do. So we get into business like that, and Kathleen talked about distribution in other tribes. It's a perfect opportunity, I think, to get into it. It's not a drug. Hemp itself is a good product, and there's a huge market that's available. All our founding fathers, George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, all of them grew hemp. All their fields had hemp. So I think outside of the casino, that would be something we could do, and that could still be done in the local area of Grand Ronde. It could be a lot of areas. The other thing that I really think is important about economic development is this: when we invested in microgreen, those losses were absorbed through our endowment earnings, and we don't really even know if our endowments are fully funded, if they're overfunded. We don't know, and so that has to be, if that's going to be the source of our funding, maybe we need to have a separate dedicated endowment fund for economic development. But we also really need to know what data do we need to decide if these are fully funded, and it's really easy to do. We have all our enrollment records, we know our birth dates. It doesn't take any outside person to run those numbers. I'll do it myself. It's not that hard. You have all your ages, you have how much life expectancy we have as a tribe. It could be easily done. It could also be done for the future. If we register our descendants, we know what potentially, if we change our enrollment down the line, what that impact is going to be. So that's what I would focus on, is those things.
Great, thanks. So some really excellent ideas out there that I'd like to share of what some other tribes are currently doing. And Jackie made mention of Warm Springs. I see Mike Clements is here. So Warm Springs, recently launched a venture to do large-scale production of marijuana. A good friend of mine, Peter Pitt, is leading that effort, and so they're going to be pioneers of actually going in and actually starting that. And they've taken that risk and that initiative to do that, and we wish them really well. The other thing that I really like that I think folks should be aware of is this idea of a board or a council of economic advisors. Heck, the President of the United States has a council of economic advisors to do a lot of his own, federal policy. The Navajo Nation also just recently started their own Navajo Nation Council of Economic Advisors, and our tribal judge, Bob Miller, was recently appointed to that Council of Economic Advisors. So there are other tribes out there that are doing similar things because they have the confidence and humility, as Kathleen said, for their leaders to admit, just because I get elected to an office doesn't mean I know how to invest millions of dollars. I should go to people that actually invest millions of dollars and ask them how to do it, because they're probably going to make smarter, better decisions. So just wanted to put those out there. So next question from the audience.
Well, I was actually thinking of this on the question about the Portland satellite office. I think if I was on council, I wouldn't mind having some office hours in Portland. I don't know if you guys do that or not, but it seems like that'd be an easy thing to do. And man, I miss Portland, so I'd be more than welcome to have some office hours opened up, and hopefully people would utilize that. But even at Grand Ronde, I think that's not fully utilized. I don't know how accessible our council members are, and so I'm all for as many people want to come talk to me as I can get. I will talk to anybody. So, if it means increasing some kind of budget for travel, I'm not sure on council, but I think it's pretty easy to do, just to set up an office right there in the satellite offices. I think that's the easiest way. I agree that even if you have a representative, it's still not you. And so I would appreciate somebody that would go and spend some time with you to talk to you, but it's not me. And I'd rather be that person, so that's how I would handle it.
Yeah, I'd rather it be you guys too, but it's like, it seems very rare that we get a chance to meet and talk with you unless we go out there.
Yeah, and I think that's probably true, because I've lived outside the area and it is really difficult. I'm trying to think, John wasn't on council, I remember seeing him in Portland, but I think he was just working at the Portland office, so I don't think he was actually on council that time. But no, you're right, it's other than seeing them right there at powwow or in their offices themselves, that is a challenge. I'd make myself available, that's for sure.
Before we go to Denise, there was a follow-up, I think, on this question too.
Yeah, the only thing I was going to say was that committees have tribal council liaisons, and a lot of times those liaisons don't show up for your meetings. That's just input there.
Okay, so the committee liaison sometimes aren't showing up to meetings, and that's just some feedback there. So it sounds like there is some structure already of trying to designate a liaison for the committees.
Yeah, and I know there are other tribal tribes that have their tribal council members are assigned to districts, and they represent those districts. I don't have a great, I guess, response is what we end up doing. This is how it is today and how we try and do that. Me, John, Chris, Brenda, and Cheryl spread ourselves pretty thin trying to cover. John and I cover a lot of the stuff in Portland. Chris and Brenda often go to Eugene and do some of the universities because we get asked for representation in those areas. And it's just whoever volunteers to do that. So there is that philosophy that we need to be in Grand Ronde every day, 8 hours a day, 10 hours a day, sometimes 16 hours a day. And I will say, I hope that we can, we get a council on there that can look at how we can structure that and how we can represent our members that live outside the area and our committees. Because right now, I mean, we juggle them. We all surround the, we got 2 or 3 things one night to go to, and I'm like, John, you go to this, I'll go to this. Brenda, can you go to that? Chris, can you go to that? I mean, it's just constant. It's constant. And, some of our days are, 12, 14, 16-hour days. But I think it is important. I enjoy going to, I try and go to the committee meetings that I can attend. And that's really something that does need to be looked at, and it needs to be structured because it's not today. And I feel it's a little unfair to other, some of the people on the council, and not everything's being covered all the time. But where's that mentality of them thinking, if you're not, because if I go to a meeting in the morning and I miss a meeting at, I'm kind of criticized for it. I may be in a really important meeting with the Dundee bypass that is crucial to our transportation, to our, casino, and our people and our employees. And those meetings are really important. Those are big decisions in our state. And to be a representative at that table, and I know people always laugh at me, I always say, if you're not at the table, you're not on the menu. And it is important. It's important for us to be at the table in Portland right now. Most of our money for Spirit Mountain Casino comes from the Portland market. I have a list of people that want me on boards. I've kind of got them waiting right now. Like, I don't know if I can squeeze that into my schedule. There's several of us that do use the call in for meetings, and that works great. And some people choose not to use that system, but I like it, and I really appreciate being able to do that because I have no problem if I'm out of the area or I have another meeting, but I can call in at a certain time to be a part of a meeting in Grand Ronde. It just doesn't seem like it's well received or accepted by everyone. So.
Thank you. Monty.
So, as I understand it, I mean, your question, getting to the heart of it, would be like, could you have an ombudsman, like an ombudsman for tribal members in each of those cities or those places?
Yeah, and, more outreach to us out here.
Right. I would support that. I mean, we have a secretary that's in the Portland Satellite Office all the time, and that's like the only position that's always there. If I'm elected to council, I absolutely would support having office hours in Portland and Salem and other places. I've literally spent 90% of my life in Portland, Salem, and Grand Ronde. So those are the places that are most dear to me. And being a college professor, it's what you do. You have office hours. It's a requirement of teaching that you have office hours for students to come in. I don't see it being any different for council. Our tribal members are our constituents. You should be in the office, available to those people to come and see you. So that's definitely something I would support. And the teleconferencing, I think that's a great idea. I mean, that's an awesome way to be able to just teleconference into a meeting so that you can still be there and still be doing something else, because it is important for us to serve on these area boards. I'm very familiar with the work that Denise is doing on that Dundee bypass project, and it's really important to our tribe right now. So I would definitely support that. I'm going to keep my answer short.
Thanks, Monty. Kathleen?
Yes, I think that communication with our satellite office is very important. again, I'm gonna say our most important asset is our tribal members. And you know, if it's only being used on this many over here, these over here are not gonna take part in what goes on with our tribe because they don't know. And I would like to see the liaison positions, if Kathy can't be at her special event board, she's in Seattle or somewhere, well, maybe she could contact me and, you know, have a second person on council, because you're not going to always be able to just jump into that meeting. However, the committees and special event boards and boards are in the newspaper. It does say special event powwow is the second or third Tuesday every month. So it's not that they jump around so much. That's a scheduled thing. And so I think as leaders, we should try to help our special event boards, committees, tribal members make their committee work. So, you know, I think that's really important that it is in place, but it's not being used. Because we've had meetings in the past in different committees or boards, special event boards, and I've been there, and here we are looking for our liaison, you know. Talked to him Tuesday, and he said he'd try to make it, but that try was there, you know, he didn't make it. But I think, you know, having a backup so council knows what the tribal people are thinking or wanting. Their voices are going to be heard that way. Otherwise, it doesn't happen, you know. Well, maybe next meeting, but for some reason, you know, and it depends on what time of the year it is, what they're working on, if it's legislature, if it's like the Constitution just went through. That took a lot of time. And of course, you're not going to be at a meeting and call in and say, oh, yeah, no, yeah, or whatever. Or put your comment in, and not knowing that it was heard. But I think the telecommunication is wonderful. We have all kinds of ways to communicate with each other, and I think as council members, being leaders and being elected by the membership, that's our job, is to hear you and talk to you. And I support some office hours in the area offices for each and every one of us. Maybe it's a half a day. Maybe it's only 2 hours. You know, that will be in Eugene on Tuesday afternoon. But then the community's going to know we're going to be there, and they'll be able to talk to us, have the open door. Because when you come up to Grand Ronde, you don't always... You knock on the door, talk to the secretary. You don't always get in to see who you want to see because they're in a special meeting or they've traveled somewhere. So, you know, I think that's something to think about, and it would benefit all tribal members. Thank you.
I'll be there.
Well, I'll just quickly share that I really like the idea that came up of office hours and not just in Grand Ronde. I hadn't heard that before. I think it's a great idea to make the leadership accessible to the people, and where they don't have to make that long trip to get access to their leadership. So I think that's a really good idea. Well, and I think the other issue that kind of come up is office hours even in Grand Ronde, right? We have some council who can be found there, and when you come by to see, you want to talk to somebody, you know, they're there regularly. And then folks may have had the experience of going to our leadership's offices on a Friday afternoon, and you can very consistently find some leadership there, and you can very consistently not. There are some folks who, as soon as their meeting is done for the day, they're done for the day. And so I think that, you know, if for those who are entrusted with the work of leading our tribe, we need to take that, you know, that's a serious full-time job. And we need to be dedicating our time into reading up on our next meeting, reading a research paper that's going to have us more informed about business opportunities or whatever the important issues are before our council. We need to take it as a full-time, serious responsibility and invest our time. Even if we don't have a briefing at 2, there's plenty of other work to be done. So, thanks for the question.
Good. That's a fantastic question. So take a moment to think about it. Denise is going already. She's reaching right away. What is your greatest failure? What is your greatest failure, and what did you learn from it? Denise.
Well, I'm assuming you want maybe something that is a failure in your time of working for the tribe or work that you've done for the tribe or whatever.
Personally or whatever you want
Yeah,
to share.
Well, I have a couple. One I'm just going to be real quick on, and then one. I mean, both of them I'll make statements on, and they were situations that I inherited when I walked into council. Not decisions that I had any decision making on, but had to inherit those decisions. So I remember back in 2007 or 8, was it, Chris, was my first year. He keeps track of numbers better than I do, but I think it was about 2008. I started running for council because there was this talk about an enrollment audit. And I was really concerned about how that was going to take place. So that's really kind of one of the first things that motivated me about running for council, because I wanted to be at the table and I wanted to have a voice on that. In making sure, however we move forward on that, it was done right. Because I knew it was opening up a can of worms that was going to be very devastating to a lot of people and to our tribe. I didn't get elected. I didn't get elected until 2013. And then I inherited every of the decisions that had been made. So that for me is probably one of the most heart-wrenching bad decisions that I had to inherit and work through, and it was difficult. I don't like the way it transpired. I don't like the outcome of it, and we're kind of a little bit, your hands are tied, and we talk about it often, and how do we get through that and move forward, and what do we do to fix it? Those are conversations that will probably be happening over the next several years. The other big mistake I think that I made is trusting that when the tribal council had invested in microgreen and I got on council and the first investments had been made, I thought they had done a really good due diligence process, because I just assumed that's what you do when you're investing $10 million. What I found through going to the board meetings, because I got real engaged. I got, okay, I got to learn about this stuff. I got to get up there. I got to know what this company's about. I got to, and then realized down the road as things kept coming forward, and there was a couple people on council that really talked up and talked about being business experts and investing their own money and all these things. So you kind of trust them, You're supposed to trust and you think, well, they're talking all this good stuff. They must know what they're talking about. But then you find out they don't. They don't. And you put your trust and your faith and you listen to them, and then you realize there was all these things that weren't done. And so it angers me that, and I don't know how you change that. I mean, I know a little bit more now, so now I can ask those types of questions on the beginning. But, so for me, that was a big mistake, assuming that things had been done and all the bases had been covered. And maybe the people talking at the table sounding like they knew what they were talking about really didn't know what they were talking about. And you really need to go beyond that. So I guess those are some pretty big, impactful mistakes, I guess I could say. Not that I did it myself, but
Thanks,
had
Denise.
something to do with it.
Let's go with Monty. Thanks.
Well, thank you for the great question, and thank you for being here. I'm gonna be real honest. My greatest mistake or greatest failure was not believing in myself. I worked for several Fortune 500 companies, was a maximum security corrections officer for the Oregon Department of Corrections. I worked at the penitentiary. And I kept topping out in these jobs where I required a college degree to go any farther. And so I would get disheartened because I'd already gone as far as I could go. So I'd get bored, go work for another company. But I kept running into that glass ceiling. And at one point, I became a tattoo artist and opened up a tattooing business. Well, it turns out tattooing's not recession-proof. So my business went under, my relationship went under, and it was then when all the chips were down that I turned back to my traditional dancing, and I turned inward. And when nobody else thought I could do it, I started college at a late time in my life. I was 37 when I started school, 38, 37. 6 years later, I have a master's degree, and I have full confidence in myself and my abilities because my heart's always in the right place, and I think with a clear mind. And I, have the tribe to thank. I have so many blessings from this tribe, and that is, I learned to believe in myself, and now I'm a published author. There's a book coming out this fall that I wrote a chapter in. All kinds of great things are happening for me now. So I would say as great as failures go and learning from it, I took it and ran with it and made a lot out of it.
Thanks. I'd like to go next, Kathleen or Jackie? I want to just go ahead, Jackie.
Well, I'm not sure which lesson I should talk about, but I think through our life that we've all made mistakes or had lessons, and I think I've had a couple of good ones that I learned from. And some of it was in when we were working for restoration. My mom, of course, was organized the tribe, and I worked by her side most of the time and taking notes. And then I kind of got away from it for about 2 years, and it was really hard because I was getting bits and pieces, and I thought, well, I need to go back to this and work a little bit harder, and I did. And then when I was starting my education, we weren't restored. I had to do it on my own. It was a long process, and like I said in the last form, certain people believed in me and helped me get to my goal of being an X-ray technician. Then the other thing, my career was starting out really good at Grand Ronde being an X-ray technician, but we made the mistake of riding a green horse in the arena at the powwow, and it wasn't the horse's fault that I was throwing from him, and I have rods in my back. I regret that every day, and I don't take any pain medication. I'm okay, to look at me, I'm okay, but I do have a little bit of disability. But I regret that, and I have learned from it, and I still love horses because it did affect my work with being an X-ray technician, because you have to be able to lift and position people, and those cartridges that you take X-rays with are very heavy after all day of taking X-rays. So I learned from that, and then I've sat back and been an elder and a grandma and kind of watched life go by. But I feel alive again now. I'm doing something every day. My campaign, painting, talking to people, and communicating on the internet has kind of turned my life around, and it said, get up and get moving. So with that, thank you.
Thanks. Kathleen or Michael? Kathleen?
So that's a really good and tough question. It's a good question when
Yeah.
it's tough, so you're thinking about that. I think what I would say is the things maybe I most regret or a failure has been to take no for an answer when it wasn't a valid one, or to allow really valid questions to be kind of pushed aside because folks didn't want to be asked them. I'm thinking about my experience. I was away for several years. I moved out to work for the Umatillas, and then I developed my own company doing natural resource policy work for tribes. And then about 5 years ago, moved home. And I really respect all the folks who have spent their entire careers working for our tribe. That's an amazing amount of dedication, and at the same time, you learn some things being away too. And when I came home, I learned that there are certain types of questions that you weren't supposed to ask, and you would be pretty shuttled aside. And leadership that used to speak to you would stop speaking to you if you asked the wrong questions. And sometimes I think there's also like a cultural part of this too, where you say, well, no, that question is really a fair question, but sometimes you think, well, that's my elder, and I doesn't feel good to say, well, no, I actually think that's an important question. I really would like somebody to give me the answer to that. I think sometimes maybe there's a cultural part to that, but when somebody adopts that role of leadership and steps into a leadership position, that's taking on the responsibility to answer questions. And Denise brought up microgreen. I remember not knowing a great deal about that, but seeing the notices come across our computer screen that there was going to be an emergency tribal council meeting, at 11:45 or at 2:15 on a Friday, and that they'd had to do something with microgreening. What is this? And there were several in quick succession at odd times, and they had to do with the authorization of another, 5 million, 7 million, whatever it was. And so all of a sudden, very rapidly, this investment that sounded kind of promising, but we didn't know a lot about, all of a sudden there was a lot of rapid action. It couldn't wait for a regular meeting. They were at strange times. And I remember reaching out to some of our leadership and asking, well, can we find out about that? Can I get the details? Can I understand why that's necessary? And is somebody down there following this business? Well, where are the other investors? And so I'm using that as an example because that's probably the most recent one, and the one where I tried to get some answers, and I found out that it was just not okay to ask. But I guess I feel that it's a two-way street, and there's also responsibility on us, and certainly on me as a tribal member who cares about these things, to respectfully push back and say, well, no, this question does really deserve an answer, and I'm happy to talk to somebody else, but I won't just take no for an answer. I won't be told that that's exclusive information that you couldn't have access to. That's a mistake, and that's something that I'm working hard to accept that responsibility and say, no, that's not something we can accept when the stakes are very high for our tribe.
Good. Michael?
Well, it is a good question. Been racking my brain here thinking about it. But I spoke last time at the last video about when I played baseball in high school, and I was on the varsity team, and I was a sophomore, and I was made team captain. And I had a lot of confidence in myself as a baseball player, and I was able to do that well and serve that role well, because our family's all about the bat and ball, and that's just like breathing to me. But then when I was 19, I was working for an office furniture company, and we put all the furniture in the BPA building. They ended up dividing us up into groups, and I was with two gentlemen who were in their 30s, and I'm 19. And we were supposed to, get so much done every day, every week. And the boss that I had was actually a friend of my brother's, and they were roommates out of high school. And I just couldn't tell these guys what to do. I didn't feel confident to tell them that they need to step it up, we need to do this, and I just let it go. And I didn't do anything, didn't push them, didn't tell anybody. And so then when Kurt came around asking, why isn't this done? He wasn't going to accept, I don't know. And he wasn't going to accept, well, I'm only 19, and I can't make these guys do anything. And we'd already had the discussion that friends are friends and business is business. And he reiterated that at that moment. And I learned that lesson right away, that, okay, I'm responsible for me. It doesn't matter about anybody else, what they do or don't do. I'm always responsible for me. And, and I've applied that ever since. There's always other little regrets that you have. I tried my best. I think I was much better than my father with patience with my children. Sometimes I regret that I wasn't good enough, and although I have no idea and I don't even recognize the man anymore, at one point my dad was saying, "Hey, you're too hard on those boys." And I thought, who is this guy? Who is he? And trust me, I was more patient with them than my own father was. But I do think I could have done a better job even at that. So I guess that's what I'd add.
Great. Thanks, Michael. So let me, I'm going to let Monty go first. So every candidate complains about the division in the tribe, especially on the tribal council. What measures or actions would you take to bring healing to the tribe? And let's start with Monty, since he has his hand up first.
Oh yeah. Thank you, Angie. So I have made no bones about telling people how I voted on the amendments. I voted yes for both of them. I want to empower tribal members to have more say in what our council does and be more responsive to the council. I also want to see a healing of the division within the tribe with the enrollment amendments. And I've also been completely honest with people and said in '99 I voted for it. I didn't realize what it was going to cause. I didn't know what was going to happen. But now that I know, I want to see it fixed. As far as on council and people saying that they're always sick of it stuff, but all I can say is I've worked as a manager and stuff for a number of corporations, and in college I got one of my bachelor's in communication studies. So, and that's about bringing people to the table to communicate, to get things done. That's what communication studies is all about. So I would love to bring those skills to bear and start working on getting people to the table so we can start moving forward and moving in a healthy direction for our tribe. So, and again, I'm going to keep it short because that's what I feel. So that's all that needs to be said from my standpoint.
Good. Thanks, Monty. Who'd like to go next? Denise? Go ahead.
That's a great question. Thank you, Angie. I want to reflect a little bit about what Kathleen spoke about mistakes and not speaking up and not asking questions. And that is really crucial when you're on council. Don't be afraid to ask the questions. Don't be afraid to give your opinions. Don't be afraid to give your knowledge and your research and your facts that you know about something. And I'm hoping that if everyone did that, and maybe I'm dreaming, and I've been told, because one of my main number one goals when I got on council was to create a unified council. People laughed at me when I would say that. And the reason that I said that is because I've been on many of nonprofit boards that there was a lot of chaos and a lot of different feelings between different board members. And I had an executive director one time that sent me a card one day, and she's, "Thank you for all that you do." And I called her and I'm like, "Well, what have I done different than any of the other board members?" And she's like, "No, you unified us." And I said, "How did I do that?" And she said, because I'm like, "I don't see that I've done, how did I do that?" And she said, "Because you were just you. And you kept, you asked the questions, you explained, you gave the information, you listened to other people." And she goes, "Eventually, everyone else was doing the same." And she said, "It took some time, but now we have a really great board. And I used to fear going to the board meetings, and now I actually look forward to going." So I think you model a certain behavior, then hopefully the people around you will see that behavior and see the positive that works. Some of us have great relationships on the council, and there's not one of us that always agree with each other. But we all have a certain amount of respect, and we communicate with each other, and we go and talk about things. If we don't agree, we ask for other people's information, and we listen to one another. And I think that's really, and I don't know, I don't have a magic answer, but all I can say is that you model a certain behavior, and hopefully that model will pick up with everybody else that's sitting at the table too.
Great, thanks. Michael, and then Jackie. So Michael, then Jackie.
Good question, Angie. It sounded different, but coming out of Chris, but good question. You know, earlier this year, I started having conversation with people from this group, but also from the other group about running for council, and I was a little naive about our whole political process. And so I attended both groups' meetings, and more than once, and I really enjoyed the discussions we had. But then word got out that I was attending both groups' meetings, and suddenly I was a different person, and nobody could trust me anymore. And in both groups' meeting, all I could say was, look, these people are my friends, my family, and my coworkers. They're not bad people. I like these people. And I stood up and said that at both group meetings and had people tear me down for it. And so how do you bring people together? You model that behavior, just like Denise said. You show up, you have conversations, you don't tear people down, you build people up, and you stay with what you believe. And I still feel, in the end, that's what wins people over. My message doesn't change depending on whose group I'm with. It's always the same. That's, you know, an internal audit, we have to be independent and objective. And I don't know any other way to be. I'm me, and I'm always going to be me no matter what group I'm in front of. That's what I'd say.
Okay, Jackie.
I agree with everybody. This is, you know, a very good question. I believe, you know, if you give a person respect and listen with your ears, you know, you may not agree with them, but listen, you know, hear what they're saying. You know, it doesn't mean because I listen to Kathy that I totally agree with her. I mean, so far she's making a lot of sense. But you know, how you treat others is how you're going to be treated. That's just a thing that's gone on forever. And I do believe if I'm elected in council, I will stand up for what I believe in. If I don't agree with what's being voted on, I'm not going to sign off on it just because everybody else did. There's going to, you know, I'm willing to stand up for my reasoning, my thought, and for the general membership. Again, I want to say that our membership is our most important asset. Now, you know, a lot of people think money is, well, to some point, but not always. And I say that from my heart because I truly believe it. I think we have to just respect each other and you know, don't badmouth each other. If you hear, oh, Kathy did this, don't repeat it. You know, get your facts. If you're voting on something, get your facts before you respond to it. You know, make sure that this person knows what they're talking about before they put this out on Facebook or telecom or whatever, or mouth to mouth, you know, that one travels fast. But, you know, I think that, you know, if every council person spoke from their heart, things would be a lot smoother. Some aren't, and because they aren't going to participate or their mindset, you've got to work past that, you know, and believe in yourself. Believe in what you're doing. Thank you.
Thanks. Kathleen?
I think the first thing that's important for all of our leadership to do is to commit to treating everyone, and certainly all leadership, all our membership, you know, with respect, and especially when we disagree. Actually, that's when our behavior should be at its best. And we have to develop a tolerance for disagreement. We're not all going to see things the same, and we don't, you know, and that's fine. We don't want 9 people who all see everything the same way, you know. We don't have a king or a chief, we have a council of 9 who should all bring their different life experiences and their values to the table. And we'll do our best work when we allow everyone to be heard. So that's the first thing, is we need to hold ourselves to a higher standard of behavior. I think one thing that is helpful to do when you're working with somebody who's convinced they disagree with everything you think is, and I've had to do that, as a policy advocate for tribes, I had to work with the leadership of the Pulp and Paper Association. And one of the things that I would try to do to build a little common ground is go and try to find out, is there something they want to accomplish that's really important to them that I can support, that I can get behind. Sometimes if you can have a success, even if it's a relatively small one, and you can cooperate on something that's important to whatever the other side is perceived to be, you can build a little bit of a connection, a little bit of trust. We don't always disagree. We can work on something together. I'd like to do that. And I'd like to create, and these are slow changes, believe me, I know they are. They're slow and incremental, and they're going to take a long time. But to have conversations that are more based on, what does the best information suggest is the right direction? What are the pros and cons of doing something? What are the risks of doing something? Maybe the benefits look really good, but it's potentially very risky. For example, a micro-edge type situation. There's kind of a strange situation that I've experienced sometimes before I'm tribal council, and folks have been presented with a scenario by staff, and then somebody just has like a gut reaction. It should be this way. And then kind of regardless of the information or facts presented, folks feel like they have to defend that position, or that anyone who sees it differently is somehow against their position. Perhaps we could have a conversation and say, well, what kind of returns are we looking for in our next investments, or what are our tolerance for risk? And we can develop some parameters around what kind of risk we're willing to tolerate. And then we go ask staff to do their job, which is to bring the best information, research, and data to the table. So we can say, okay, we're going to make our decisions based on the best information and not just a gut reaction. Not only would I hope over time that helps us just refrain from saying, well, last time Michael disagreed with me, so this time whatever he says, I'm going to disagree with him. We can kind of get away from some of that. Maybe. But also we can explain to the membership why we did make a decision. And I think that's something we should really be able to do too, other than, well, Michael, he's always going in for those sorts of things. There's nothing I can do about it. We can actually talk about why it is we decided to go one way or not another. Those are some of my thoughts.
Great, thanks. Good answer. Okay.